A 101 Supreme prototype? This thing needs an investigation. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. A viewer of the show sent me a listing to this German ad of a supposed Gibson Supreme prototype 1-of-1 camouflage green. And I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty crazy for a Supreme. We've got a green flame top. It's not like a traditional super pinstripey one either. It's really wide, not necessarily conventionally flamed. We've got our chrome toppers, which you don't normally see on most Supremes. We've got some reflector knobs. We have what looks like the auto-tune system on it, or at least the bridge and tailpiece system that's normally on it, such as like on a Dusk Tiger. And that kind of lines up for 2008. And hey, that's cool, I just now noticed that. It has a natural side. But then we flip over to the back. Yes, indeed, it is a Supreme, because you do not have any back control plate. The way that they used to do Supremes before discontinuing them is they made the output jack plate larger to fish the electronics through there. But you can learn all about Supremes in this episode. But that's got equally as nice figuring, and is also green. But then our neck is actually a natural color. Interesting choice. Another interesting fact about Supremes is they have 3-ply binding along the back. You normally only find that on certain semi-hollow guitars. So since these are chambered out, it's kind of a cool harkening back to that. But then the top has the regular custom multiply. First glance, things are looking okay here. It's got some parts that we don't normally see, but if we translate from their language to English, it says it was a one-off custom made by a Gibson employee. So that's not necessarily a prototype. Prototype means it is the very beginning. It's the first one before the model came out, or maybe it's a prototype for a certain color. The only way prototype should be left in there is it's actually marked prototype on the back of the headstock. True prototypes get evaluated completely differently. 8,000 price tag might not make sense if it was just a regular one, but if it was a true prototype of a model that didn't end up coming out, it could be worth around there. In fact, if you're interested in what the actual Les Paul Supreme prototype looks like, it's this one right here. Randy Leonard owns it, because his dad had a hand in help designing that guitar. But the top is absolutely explosive on that one, as is the back. It really does remind me of my 125th anniversary Supreme. But then, fun story behind this one. The model first launched in the year 2003, so that makes sense that this would be like a 2002, early 2003. But the serial number on this one is actually his dad's birthday, and it was his guitar that was later on passed to him. So for the seller, to be honest, you should really take the word prototype out of this, because that's not what it is at all. Because that was the first thing that threw me off. I mean, this is 5 years after the Supreme was introduced. But don't rush out to pay the 7,000 euro price tag quite yet. Because most Supremes, they don't look like this with the flame inlays on the fretboard. Usually you'll have the Super 400s or nothing at all if you're talking about one of the Guitar of the Week versions. Now Gibson does do a similar flame. Check out one of the Ice Flame guitars. Or sometimes other Ultimas will also get it. But this photo right here really rubs me the wrong way. That's not the style of nut Gibson would use, and we should have fret nibs on this thing. Now I suppose being an employee build, they could have opted to not have fret nibs, because some guys are like that, but the whole nut situation makes me a little suspicious. But if you look at the headstock, yeah, everything's okay there. Got your lines around the logos. That's how all Gibsons tend to age due to their sandblasting process and how they do their inlays. But looking at our headstock, we have really strange tuners. They're like Fender style, poke it down, wrap it around. I've never seen one of those on a Les Paul. But hey, wait a minute, that's not what's supposed to be on a Supreme. You're supposed to have the globe inlay. So that's a little bit different too, potentially with a new peghead veneer. And unfortunately, we don't have a single shot of the back of the headstock, so we don't know what kind of serial number may or may not be on here. So personally, I would be too scared to put my stamp of approval that this left the factory like this. I think it's possible somebody took an existing Supreme and did some light refinish work and put a new fretboard on it. The other thing to consider here is it has the real Gibson Supreme case. So I have no thoughts in my mind that this is Gibson or anything like that. Everything on this guitar was definitely made by Gibson. I only have doubts about the frets and fretboard. However, they claim there is photo documentation from the Gibson factory that it left like this. The only problem here is it's not in their sale ad, so does it exist or not? Because if they do have the documented proof that the flame fretboard and headstock left the factory like that, okay, yeah, that is kind of cool. I get it, sometimes selling employee guitars can be a little bit dicey if you haven't held on to it long enough. So if you're interested in it, do a little bit more digging would be my advice. So I'll let you guys marinate on that in the comments section, but I've got a couple of other cool ones to share with you tonight. Take a look at this one that Hog listed. It's a purple burst, super tight pinstriped Les Paul custom, but if that wasn't enough, we have Super 400 inlays. This is not a combination you see too often outside of like the Purple Widows where they have the purple binding on top of it. Just a a regular Les Paul Custom with the white binding and that finish with the gold hardware, that really pops. But it's just a regular Les Paul Custom with the Nashville style bridge, not a particular year reissue. Then the headstock's pretty much more of the same. But whoa, I didn't even know that when I saved this in my watch list. They opted to not have binding on the back. No doubt that was a cost savings measure for them, because there's definitely an upcharge to have Super 400 inlays done. They're a little bit more labor intensive, but all I've got to say is if you're gonna do that, you might as well put the belly carve and access heel join in. That would have made this thing even crazier. But we've got our Gibson custom medallion back here. Looks like that's what they're using for this year. And I can't quite tell if that's a black finish or extra dark purple. I suppose you'd have to buy it to find out, but that is a 2023 year production guitar. And how much do they want for it? $7,100. Ooh, that definitely did get pricey, because that comes from the base model black one, that's $5,000. You probably get charged about $1,000 to put a flame top on it, and we'll say not having the back binding and swapping your inlays about evens it out, and then adding another $1,000 for the custom finish. Okay, I guess it makes sense in Gibson custom shop world. You don't personally have to understand it or pay the prices, but it is helpful to know about it to see is a custom spec guitar or a made to measure thing priced at an ultra premium by the dealer, or are they just selling it for what they're supposed to, which in this case I think that's what they were told MSRP should be. But hey, it's been sitting for a month, you might be able to call them up and get a discount. Speaking of really cool Les Paul Customs, does this one look familiar? Listed by Diablo Guitars, it's the Sugar Plum Fairy Les Paul Custom. We actually reviewed and documented this. I had sold it to a collector who almost exclusively collects these mod collection demo shop guitars, and it looks like he decided to move it on. Because what was cool about this one is it had the double stingers, so you have it at the base of the heel as well as the neck. The one thing I never liked about that particular guitar was the fact that they decided to do satin stingers on it. It really messed with the feel of the neck if you were trying to play it, because there was a little bit of a ridge between the glossiness and the satinness. But the lavender binding with the dark purple everything else, that was a really cool guitar. And they're taking offers starting at the $8,000 price tag. Speaking of double stingers, I just recently put up Ghost for sale. It's got the same thing going on, except for this time it's all a semi-gloss. And it's got that cool black and white tuxedo vibe going on. White back, white top, white neck, but with the black sides. And it's a one pickup Les Paul Custom. This thing is sweet. It's a phenomenal guitar. You can check it out on my Reverb page or my website, troglysguitarshow.com. But our next one in our journey tonight threw me for a loop. Listed by Billy's Guitar Shop in Jacksonville, Florida. I had to look at this photo and go, why does that look so strange? It's because we got a humbucker in the bridge and the mini humbucker in the neck, so it's a deluxe that's been routed out in the bridge position. But something about that color works really great with that combination. But ooh, to make matters even better, we've got the 1972 embossed Gibson mini humbucker. If only we had the matching humbucker cover as well. But according to the description, this is actually an 83 Tim Shaw, so it's like, yeah, that's not a bad set of pickups you got in there. We've got the ABR1 style bridge on it yet. Looks like replaced tailpiece, replaced knobs. We definitely have replaced tuners. It's heavily aged, really heavily aged from this photo. And look, somebody added another output jack. Maybe they did a stereo modification? It almost looks more like a cherry sunburst in this photo. But the back doesn't have too much wear, all things considered. The price is at $3,600 currently at the time of recording. And I forget if I've mentioned this before or not, so I thought we would talk about it again. The Korina Explorers are starting to come in limited edition colors. So they're really expensive at $10,000, but you can also get these in Tobacco Sunburst. I've seen at least 2 of these, and I've seen a couple of Candy Apple Reds. Now what's really sad is a viewer of the show wanted to sponsor this review and demo, but the dealer wouldn't work with me on price, so unfortunately we had to go our separate ways. And to wrap up tonight's episode, I got a couple of interesting wood grain examples for you. This one's over in Watchtower Guitars. It's a 60s bourbon burst that's used. Got a really big ringy wood grain with a little bit of flame. And then you've got a slightly lifting plastic on your pick guard that almost kind of matches the vibe of everything else. And then a pawn shop has a pretty cool studio. Although at $1,600, that's the same price as a brand new one, and they're forcing you to pick it up, that's probably gonna be there a while. But it's got some pretty fascinating wood grain for a studio. Maybe it's worth it to you to pay that. Lots of ringiness in that direction, and a little bit of flame, which you're not supposed to get on a studio. But occasionally, nice maple slips in. You never know what you're going to get if you buy sight unseen. Huh, something weird going on with your neck there. But alright, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.